Hi Founder fans, Jason here. Today's founder is William Jackson. William Jackson would go on to be Secretary of the Constitutional Convention. But before this, he was just a 16-year-old boy when he joined the Continental Army. And he quickly proved himself valuable and became personal secretary to Major General Benjamin Lincoln. And he served with Benjamin Lincoln in the Southern Department of the War for several years before being captured with the Army at the Battle of Charleston. Now, he was in prison for a while, but eventually William Jackson was paroled, at which point he starts working with John Laurens of the Broadway play Hamilton fame, and more importantly, of the being a part of George Washington's family fame. And Jackson became Laurens' personal secretary and therefore was up among the higher ranks serving in the war. Now, Laurens, and with him Jackson, would travel to Europe for about a year to try and negotiate some more funds from both France and the Netherlands. And this was done fairly successfully, although there was some issues with Alexander Gillian, who was the Commodore in charge of the South Carolina Navy, but eventually Jackson does return to the United States just after the Battle of Yorktown and after the Revolution had been won. At this point, Jackson, he holds a variety of jobs, the first of which he goes to work for Benjamin Lincoln again, who at that point was acting as Secretary of War for the Continental Congress. Then Jackson would go back to Europe. He would work as Robert Morris's agent for a little while, and then come back to the United States, study as a lawyer, and eventually he's given a job at the request of Alexander Hamilton to be secretary to the Philadelphia Convention. And we know the Philadelphia Convention today as the Constitutional Convention. And Jackson was in charge of, well, taking the notes and sending the correspondence and all of the fun, hard work. Now, he was not a delegate. He was hired by the convention to work as secretary. It's interesting to note, too, that the other candidate for this position was William Temple Franklin, the grandson of Benjamin Franklin, who seems to have had a better chance of getting the job because he had just served as the secretary to the delegation that signed the Treaty of Paris and ended the war. Jackson, instead, had been a kind of a traveling itinerant secretary, if you will, bouncing around, as I've said. But Jackson does get the job, and he spends the summer being secretary for the Constitutional Convention. Sadly for us as history fans, Jackson doesn't do a fantastic job. He does not take nearly as many notes as he should, and the notes he does take don't have a lot of substance to them and really don't tell us much. Fortunately, we have James Madison to thank for his very thorough notes at the Constitutional Convention. Either way, after the Constitution was signed, there were a few adjustments that were made to the final document, mostly punctuation and grammatical things of that nature, but still, they needed someone to attest to the changes made on the United States Constitution, and William Jackson, as the secretary, was the one they chose to attest to it. And therefore, he actually did affix his name to one of the original constitutions, and in a weird fashion, could be considered the 40th signer of the Constitution. He's not, but you could consider him that. What Jackson did do is he took the United States Constitution from Philadelphia to New York City, where he is the one who presented it to the Continental Congress that was then meeting in New York City. Additionally, he's the one who had the honor of reading the United States Constitution to the Continental Congress for the first time. Several of the people were horrified to hear what they heard, but still, he had that honor. William Jackson would follow this up by being chosen by President George Washington to act as one of his personal secretaries alongside Tobias Lear for the first 2 years of his presidency. And then again, Jackson bounces around for a little while, and eventually he spends the larger portion of the rest of his life working as a publisher, publishing a pro-Federalist newspaper called the Political and Commercial Register. So that's the life of William Jackson. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure you hit like and definitely subscribe for new videos 6 days a week about the American Revolution. Keep adding videos. Anyway, thank you again. I'll be back with another founder for you tomorrow.